Hey friends, Rob Hipp here, Director of Operations at SHN Sports, as always joined by my good friend Karl Schoening, our Director of Broadcasting. Man, this was kind of impromptu today. We've been doing coffee with Karl and Rob for a little bit now, been a couple of weeks, and I put a question out on social media a little bit earlier. Karl and I have weekly meetings on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and we decided let's just hop in. And so our good friend Trevor Beard has a group on Facebook, and we asked in that group, what are some challenges you face in broadcasting that you would like help with? I mentioned that Karl and I are busy creating content every week to help sports broadcasters in all areas, from sales to on-air talent, production, including video, which Karl is quickly becoming the internet expert on video. I'm just going to call it how it is. And so we'd love to help you. And I said, let us know what you would like to see that would benefit you. And some questions started pouring in, Karl. So we wanted to answer those. You and I were about to wrap up our meeting, and we said, you know what, man, why don't we just go live with this and answer some of those questions? How have you been? What's going on in your world, man?
Oh, just been busy, trying to get busy, really. Right now, I'm sort of in that dead season where we're talking about no real NCAA events. I think my first scheduled broadcast, or my next scheduled broadcast, I should say, is like August 13th. So I got a little ways away until, football season and soccer season for the NCAA starts up again, and then volleyball will get rolling shortly after both of those start, or maybe while both of them are about to start. It's like between soccer and football. The official schedules haven't come out for everything. In fact, the UTSA soccer schedule just came out yesterday, so I'll need to look at the official one. But anyway, yeah, buddy, I'm just kind of doing this, looking forward to answering some questions, because you had told me about that during our meeting, and I was just like, you know what? Not saying that we are the authority on sports broadcasting by any means, but you and I have plenty of experience. You at NDSU and myself at UTSA. We both did stints at Division III Southwestern up in Georgetown, Texas, as well as various other places. We're not going to list our entire resumes. I think those are some of the highlights. But obviously, one last highlight for me, I guess, is the G League with the Austin Spurs. That's my longest tenured gig. So, just anything we can do to kind of help our fellow broadcasters. And you had some really interesting topics in there that, there's a million ways to do what we do. So, you and I might have a few brainstorming ideas just to give some examples for these, questions that you posed in that Facebook group. Go ahead and let us know what the Facebook group is called, so maybe we can encourage more people to join as well if they happen to stumble across this video.
Yeah, we'll do that in just a second. I wanted to say hello to our good friend. This is Brian
Hey,
Snowman,
Snow.
saying, hey, what's up, Snowman? Let us know if you've got any questions, too, while we're here on this live. We're going to be on just briefly. But, yeah, the group is broadcasters, play-by-play announcers, and public address announcers on Facebook. Trevor Beard had created this group, and I've already said the question. But, we had a lot of folks, actually, that were chiming in on this right away. And so Adam Holland is one of them, and he says, one of the challenges that I'm facing is trying to incorporate video and be able to play our radio commercials. This is something that I've had a tremendous experience with when I started with the local radio station in Huntsville, Texas. How could we tie all that together? There's a lot of technical aspects to that depending on what automation system you use. There at our station, or at the previous station I was at, we used Wide Orbit. So it really depends, Adam, on first of all, what automation system are you using and how does that tie into your board? One way that we did it is I had a program called Team Talk. I know that using Comrex systems are pretty expensive for some stations, and so maybe if you're in a smaller market, you're looking for some software. I use software called Team Talk, and I was able to route that through different ways and was able to make that work. Rockdale ISD, they worked with their local radio station, and we were able to pipe in their signal through one of their Comrex boxes. So again, it really depends on the equipment. And you know what? If you could let us know what equipment you have at your station and all that, we can definitely give you more information on that. But it can be done. It just depends. Again, there's so many variables on the technical aspect. But we used a program, Karl, as you know, to do our stuff called Jingle Palette, and it made it really simple. So give us some more information about what equipment you use. The good news is you can join the SHN Sports Association at members.shnsports.com, and we can give you some more detailed information on that. Your thoughts, Karl?
Yeah, yeah. I have a couple other questions too. I think one of the things that I would want to know is, are your streaming for your video broadcast commercials different from your radio broadcast commercials? And what is the overlap that you can sort of have in there? And Just if we're talking about, okay, it's the same broadcast throughout, I would almost say play everything locally and have all audio being sent back to the radio station. That includes the commercial breaks. That means that basically it might not always translate, but your video commercials are also having the audio sent to the radio broadcast. So that might not be the most ideal situation, but just off the top of my head, I would probably, if it were me saying, okay, Karl, you have to do this. You have to get our radio commercials out over the air, but they don't have to, but they can't interfere with our video streaming commercials. Then yeah, going to what you were saying about integrating, I think just depending on whatever system your radio station uses, you're going to have to very succinct to where it's like, hey, this is a 2 minute
Mhm.
block. So we're playing 4 30-second commercials. The live stream commercials go out for their 2 minute block. The radio station has their 2 minute blocks. And then on the radio station's end, you have a bumper, and this starts to get into a whole bunch of USB routing that you're talking about uh, how you're going to be able to not have any of that sound interfere with each other as well. So that comes down to equipment. We have that Rodecaster Pro 2, which I think does a great job where you can mix minus a whole bunch of stuff locally, but yeah, just to kind of think out loud, maybe even incorporating it with a Stream Deck. I think the Stream Deck multi-actions would really help in that case. And, those Elgato Stream Decks, if you are doing live video and you don't have an Elgato Stream Deck, let me tell you, that will change your life. That is, the Elgato Stream Decks are something that I certainly would not have been able to get through my last streaming season with baseball and softball without those, because I incorporated my scoreboard into it. I was able to incorporate my video switching when I was using vMix, all kinds of things. So, yeah, I would say if we have a chance to learn a little bit more about your setup, we might be able to give you a much more clear answer on what you can do. But yeah, it sort of comes down to, I think if I could, I would just basically do the entire broadcast locally. So every ad would actually be playing out of my computer or mixer. Jingle Pallet's not a bad way to do it. Or just straight have the audio from OBS or whatever encoder you're using feed back into your mixer, which then feeds into the radio broadcast as well. However, you need to kind of route that audio. That a couple of those questions being answered would probably give me a bit more clear of a logistical working on how to send that audio out. But you brought up a couple really good, Team Talk being one of them, softwares that could really help out pretty much anybody's. Team Talk
Yeah,
free,
it is.
I
Yeah,
never
and I
really,
didn't even
yeah.
know about it. A guy in the industry had told me about it. So, there's again, we just need a little bit more information. But I'll be honest with this: I had an IT company for 14 years, and I understand how to keep stuff very simple. And so I did that. And Karl, you're right on the money. If you can self-produce on location, I highly recommend that over everything else. Now, if you're a college broadcaster, like when I was at NDSU or even at Sam Houston, obviously you need to have a professional producer back at the station doing that stuff. But yeah, give us some more information about exactly what equipment you're using at the station and overall really what you're trying to do with the equipment you have. And we can provide a very clear and concise answer for you if you're a member of the SHN Sports Association. Again, you can join that at members.shnsports.com. Adam, great question, man. Appreciate it. I hope it gives you a little bit of guidance of where to go. And then, of course, on the association side, we're there for you. Karl had another question come in, and appreciate this one here from Carter Underwood. Carter says, I'm a commentator. I've been calling games since 2021 for basketball and football in my area. I would like to know how to better prepare for games. This person, Carter, stated, I use paper and my laptop for stats and players pulled up for both teams while calling the game. I also conduct interview with coaches as well as after the game. I would love to have advice on how to always have something to say. I call games good on the court, but background-wise, the team's play style, etc., I usually say about 1 to 2 minutes of background of both teams. Said I'm trying to call at the level like Gus Johnson, etc. Any help would greatly be appreciated. Well, I can tell you right now, Karl, before I know you've got some tips on this as well because you do the Austin Spurs. I can tell you right now, you're doing a lot of things right. You're interviewing coaches. You're doing background prep work. All of that is very well. For me personally, and it may change with Karl, and that's why it's cool to have two different perspectives on this. For me personally, at the collegiate level, I'm using what I see on the screen, but I always, no matter if I'm in college or high school, I always have paper copies of stats and I always have paper copies of rosters. I got into trouble one time trying to call a baseball game using an iPad and scoring it that way. Well, guess what happened? The iPad crashed and I lost half the game and I had nothing to go back and reference. For me, my preference, and many veterans in the industry still like to have something that they can hold on to and write down on. Even though the NCAA at the collegiate level feeds you stats like a buffet, I still had my own football drive summaries, and I still kept track of 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and free throws and fouls on paper for basketball. Karl, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it depends on what level you're broadcasting at. Like the high school and below level, good luck is all I can say because sometimes you're going to get coaches that are maybe a little cold and don't want to give you any answers. That always is unfortunate, and you sort of have to deal with. I know there have been times where. On Monday, I send out an email Monday morning. Hey, coach, my name is Karl. All information is for broadcast purposes only. And I don't hear back until Friday, even with a follow up. Sometimes coaches think that maybe broadcasters are spies or they don't want the media to know things such as stats. In fact, one of our SHN teams, I won't name names, Rob, but you can guess, didn't even give me stats, and I had been doing their games all season long. They just didn't want me saying it over the air. So, I think sometimes it's hard for you to be able to, have that little extra boost of like, oh yeah, the quarterback is throwing for this and running for this, and the star running back's doing this and that at the high school level. So just do your due diligence as much as possible. And Max Preps, I think, has gotten a lot better, but for the longest time there, and still to this day, take everything on Max Preps with a grain of salt. They're trying to do something that obviously is a very tall task in being the nationwide high school statistics and scheduling website. So sometimes you're going to have coaches that give you all the great information, and sometimes you're going to be working with information that's from last year or even just straight up not updated at all, and you have to hunt for information. So yeah, when it comes to the high school level, just do as much hunting as you can and accumulate what you can, and be sure to send those follow-up emails so you have reasonable amount of time, especially for football when you're talking about having to deal with 11 guys on the field for either team. 22 total players is a lot of guys to be able to know who's doing what. And then with football, with how they can sub in and out, you're really trying to memorize 50 players on each team. So obviously football is one of those tougher sports, but it's the same thing when it comes to basketball. Yeah, reach out as early as you can to try and get the rosters. Don't go too early. Like, if it's January and you're trying to ask about a game at the, end of the month or in several weeks, then yeah, I think that's overkill. But within a week, try and just get as much information as you can. I would always say for basketball, go to the official scorers table and get a picture of the active roster, because if they're not in there, they can't play or it's a technical foul. So coaches are always on top of game day on the scorers table sheets. Every single game, I go right to the scorers table. Once those books are filled out, I take a picture because even if I do prep work, you never know if there's going to be a JV call-up who you now know the name and number of because of that scorers table. And then, if you see anything that does throw you a curveball, you can just go right up to the coaches. When it comes to the college level, I think we've gotten a little spoiled, Rob. D3, sometimes you might have some issues. D2, same thing, could be a little shoddy. But by the time you get to the Division I college level, the sports information directors are on top of everything. They sometimes even have like recordings of how the players say their own names for those tougher pronunciations. You can look back on previous years to see what some players did. They have game notes. Those are great little just updates, and I think that's obviously something worth looking into. But really, what you're talking about with paper, physical, actual paper, what I do personally is I go into Photoshop and I make an 11 by 17 uh, canvas, and I just create all of my information. Like, oh, here's my notes that I want to get to in the top right corner. Here's the roster on the left. Here's the stats just next to the roster. And then, maybe some other things. I have both teams on one sheet of paper, and I print it out at FedEx for a little over $1. Just go to FedEx Print and Go, and then these just nice printable papers. And Rob, you have a connect who made some absolutely phenomenal spotting charts for you when you were at NDSU. So, and I think even when you were at Sam. So, I think spotting charts, no matter what sport you're doing, are great little just one sheet right in front of you, right there. And then if you do have live stats, I would have a tablet or a computer or whatever with an internet connection to get live stats. So this way, if there's something that maybe threw you off, you can check the live stats, say, oh yeah, like one time for me, it was a double foul. And I was just like, what happened right there? The ref didn't do a great job of explaining it, and they told the scorers table what happened, but we were on the other side, so we couldn't quite hear. And the live stats said, oh, double foul. And I'm like, okay, it was a double foul. That clears that up within a few moments. And then I knew that two players picked up a foul instead of just not knowing what's going on and then finding out later that it's like, oh, that person fouled out. When was their fourth foul? Stuff like that. So, as you get further into it and have you additional tools, that's always great. But yeah, I would say the preparation is definitely into what you can bring in physical paper. And then when you get to the higher levels to where you can use computers for like live stats and, maybe just have tablets where you can pull up tabs of your information from your own notes or your phone. But I think you already told the cautionary tale there, Rob, where if something crashes on you, that's very stressful during a game to try and troubleshoot electronics while doing a broadcast. So I certainly think, paper, as old school as it is worth the investment of your time.
That's right. And Karl, I did want to share one other thing here too. I'm going to see if this pops up on the screen because, I wouldn't say I cheat a little bit. You need to do prep work. This isn't by no means, a way to cheat. But, man, I developed this. You can get it as a member of the SHN Sports Association. Let's say that and this works well for Division I especially, but even 2 and 3. This is called my Basketball Smart Roster. Now, to go back to the person who answered this or asked this question, Carter, if you're calling high school, this won't work for you. But if you're a Division I especially, but even 2 and 3, I've developed a little smart scorecard. Let's say that you wanted to find out you've got a game and it's Alabama State University. You just scroll down, you click on their name. You can choose here either men or women. And this thing has saved me about 4 hours of prep work as it will automatically populate based on what the NCAA has on their stat website. Granted, with this, I still do a lot of prep work on the back end. So even though I have this smart roster, again, it is available for those of you that are an SHN Sports Association member. You can go to members.shnsports.com to get access to that roster. Well worth the investment, by the way. But here's the deal. Even though I have that, I still always have – I print that out, by the way, but I'll jot down notes in there. I'll type notes. I'll print it out. I also go back and I listen. Whenever I was doing NDSU and Sam Houston, especially at NDSU, I would go back and watch previous games to get information. At the high school level, hey, a lot of stuff is live streamed now, even recordings of audio broadcasts. Go back and listen. That'll help you pick up names and numbers and possibly pronunciations. One thing that I do at the high school level that I do at every game, no matter what, is I always talk to parents of opposing teams, and that helps to fill content. I do that every game. I enjoy doing it. One, that kind of builds some camaraderie with the opposing team, and it gives me a little bit of insight. Hey, how was the drive in? I noticed your last name. Are you the father? I've asked that a lot, and a lot of times they'll be like, no, I'm the grandpa, which is really cool. So just get engaged, be involved, and hopefully, that answers some of your questions, Carter. Really appreciate that. And don't worry about talking the entire time because you had said, I need to always have something to say. The joy of broadcasting is you don't always have to have something to say. Give the broadcast time to breathe a little bit. Let your crowd noise behind the scenes really fill in and encapsulate that broadcast. Remember, whenever you're broadcasting, even if it's video, video paints the picture for you, but always try to paint the picture with your words, especially on radio. So good stuff there, Carter. Appreciate that question. We got a couple more we want to get to here, Karl, as we are answering your broadcasting challenging questions. Sam Feely said live streaming and videography jobs that would normally be contracted out are becoming automated at an alarming rate. I couldn't agree with you. It is with automated cameras now. It doesn't matter whether it's public, private, charter, or other schools, belts are tightening everywhere. Here's the question that Sam has, Karl, for announcers. How do you convince your clients to keep you on for play-by-play, and how do you adjust the rates that you charge them, if at all? I wanted to take a quick hammer at this one, Karl, and I know you've got some to add on. How do you keep your clients on? Just show up. I think whenever you show up and that you're involved with people, I have no idea, something is ringing. Do you hear? That's what the joy of live. And I have,
Yeah, you're cutting in and out.
yeah, somebody is,
No, you're good now.
okay.
Good.
I don't,
Yeah, whatever it was.
yeah, somebody is, I have no idea what's going on. Oh, you know what it is? Somebody on Facebook is calling me. Let me close the Facebook tab. See, that's why I love live. But to answer your question, get involved. I think the number one thing is if you are involved, people will say, no matter if I've got an automated camera system or not, they want somebody that is involved with their program. What do I mean by involved? At the high school level, go to booster club meetings. And this, you're probably relating to high school because the automated systems aren't really taking over college sports. Some of them, yes, but most college sports wants to have that announcer. But get involved. Go to practices. This can go back to some of the other questions, too, about prep work. Go to practices. Coaches see you at practices. I was really taken back because at the Division I level, I'm at a practice for Sam Houston, and Coach Casey Keeler comes up to me, shakes my hand one time, and says, Rob, I'm really glad to see you out here checking out our guys. That kind of builds that relationship with the team. So just show up, be involved, and those things are naturally going to happen. If you're someone who's dedicated, no matter if they bring in an automated camera system or not, they're going to say, you know what, we really like so-and-so's personality. We want them to remain the voice of the team. That's kind of how I would approach that. Karl, I'll let you have your thoughts, and then we'll answer that second part of the question as well.
Yeah, you're spot on there, but also at the same time, I think you have to realize that this is a tough industry. Sports are fun and enjoyable, but at the same time, you're in a very you can be replaced. We're all sort of replaceable as these sort of media people. So, while I think it is a smart idea to get involved and meet people, also kind of read the room, know where you're crossing that fine line between being annoying and being persistent. Being persistently there and being somebody who's a consistent part of the team, maybe whatever you need to do to go that extra mile, but find out when you go that extra mile too far as well, because I think, Rob, there are plenty of people we know in this industry who maybe do need to dial it back a little bit. And that's certainly something where just know the people that you're working with, and how comfortable they are with you being around, and just build up that trust and that comfortability. And on top of that, just always be looking out for another opportunity as well. I'm not saying if you're happy with where you are, you should do that exactly, but I think the more gigs you do, the more people you work with, where all the time for me, where it's like, okay, my Wednesday's free. What can I do with this Wednesday? And I try to find another gig on Wednesdays that helps me build relationships. So, great example was this past year when I was working with UIW football. I ended up live streaming their coaches' shows because they had a need for that, and I ended up doing their live streams for their coaches' shows on Wednesday, and that made them really like me. I think that was sort of the key with UIW, because I really helped them out with a need, and I just did the production. I didn't do the hosting of the show, but it was something that added value that they really were just kind of concerned about. So, find out where you can add value, and make sure you charge if it's going to be something that's a use of your equipment and time and talents. But at the same time, that was something that I think now I can say to other people, oh, hey, I did this coach's show with UIW. So, now I can say I do this, and maybe this year I won't be doing that because they have a new person that'll be filling in. So now I got to find something else to do on my Wednesday nights to say, oh, hey, this is something I can do to, I don't know, I'm throwing out UTSA or Texas State, or, find what's local to you so it's not unreasonable. Like if somebody asked me to do something in Iowa, I'm in Texas, I'm not going to be able to make it.
Yes.
So, I would just say, when it comes down to it, we are all replaceable. And next thing you know, everything that we had last year could be gone from us. So that's why it's important to make other relationships and be well rounded and know how to do multiple things. So this way, oh, hey, yeah, this did get automated, but we still like how you do this. And then, maybe if you just get completely automated out, people are like, hey, we're sorry, this is how it goes. You still sort of find the relationships that you made along the way, like you said, by going that extra mile to the practices where people are like, oh yeah, you know what, people really like that you did this, so how about you do the practice videos or what have you. There's so many things that are needed across all sports, all levels, that just make yourself as well rounded as possible. And I would say, do some things for free, but be careful how much you do for free, because people love free things. so do make sure you value yourself and your time as well. So I'm right there with you. I'm scared of AI eventually replacing sports broadcasters, but I get the feeling that as sports broadcasters, people like having us around. So it's a legitimate fear, but if you're well rounded and one thing kind of falls through for you, there's always something else that you can sort of say, oh, maybe someone's looking for a producer or a show host or what have you. So be well rounded, go that extra mile like Rob said, and just be on the lookout. Never assume that something that was surefire for you last year is going to be something that's surefire for you next year, because that's sort of a scary thought for me as a freelancer, where it's like, I would hate it if UTSA kind of told me in August, it's like, oh, hey, we went another direction, like that. It's like, oh, well, what am I going to do in August now, So, I would say be persistent, but don't be a gear grinder. That's the main thing that I think people don't like. Know when you've maybe done too much and now all of a sudden your personality is getting annoying. So there's that fine line for you to flirt with, and that's certainly a tough thing to say, because it's very situation and person specific. So you have to understand in your situation where that going that extra mile maybe rubs people the wrong way as well.
It's called being politely persistent, as my good friend John Chalesnik said.
I like that.
Politely persistent is the way to do it. And Karl, you're right on the money about that. I did want to say one thing. I had some wisdom the other day from someone in the industry. Just you had mentioned this briefly, and I posted one of the most impactful pieces of wisdom spoken to me by an experienced professional in the media industry is to anticipate all possibilities. If you have a thought in your head about the media, expect that may happen. It may not, but expect that it may. And he told me, he said, never fall into complacency with your current role, nor should you make the assumption that your position will remain static. And then I added to it, and this kind of goes into the whole thing about, am I concerned about my job? I said, commit to diligent work, always strive to give your best, and concentrate on narrative crafting. The media industry is not centered around you. Instead, it revolves around the people you cover, the stories you narrate, and the audience that consumes your content. So all very good points. Just be there, be involved, show people that you care and that you're passionate, and more likely than not, the favor is going to be on your side. You did ask another part to that question. We won't dig into it too deep, but you would ask about, how do you adjust the rates that you charge them, if at all? Karl just said a while ago, people love free, but don't sell yourself short. You may feel like, oh man, I pushed this product or this idea that I had to do this video for $500 and they said no, and I probably should have offered it for $100. You know what? There's going to be another guy down the street that's going to pay you the $500. When I came to Huntsville to restart kind of what we're doing, and I won't go into a long story of my background, but, I had the opportunity to broadcast for Sam Houston and for NDSU. And I'll say, people say, well, why'd you leave NDSU? Family came first for us. So both of those decisions were family-based, not because somebody said, hey, Rob, see you later. It was our decision. We were thankful for the opportunities. But, we came back here, and so we said, how are we going to restart what we're doing? And you know what? You just got to be involved and develop relationships. And what I'm getting at is, I started this program called Good Morning Huntsville under Hello Huntsville. Well, I had an idea in my head of what I should charge, and I talked to somebody, and they said, Rob, you're more valuable than that, and you're doing a lot of work. Charge more. Guess what? I charged more. didn't think anybody would bite. We had 5 people in 2 days say, yeah, I want to do it. So don't sell yourself short. And you know what? Put a rate out there that you feel is comfortable, that's taking care of you, but is also beneficial to the program that you're covering, and see what they say. All they're going to tell you is no. And at that point, say, do you have this within your budget? That's all part of kind of a sales course, by the way, that we have on the SHN Sports Association. If you sign up at members.shnsports.com, you can get more information, and you can see that 40-minute sales course that I put together. Karl, just briefly, your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I think we would always like to at least increase our pay on our freelance rates every year, and sometimes it isn't within their budget. So, that's another one of those circumstances where you just kind of have to ask, not tell. Like say, oh, hey, this is sort of, and it also comes down to your personality, I guess, and a couple other things. Like I know that we had a guy who you gave a really good rate for a couple years, where you were heading up the production, you were doing all the stuff before and for the prep, and then I just kind of showed up on game day, and then I kind of like found out later you kind of were charging him what, and then he wanted to come back after not using us for a year when you were up in North Dakota and Huntsville, and I told him, okay, this is like my rate if I'm doing it, and this is how the people I would be putting together, and they shot me down, and I'm just like, okay, you know what, like really the amount of effort that would go into it for the pay was not going to be valuable to me. So I think you should always value yourself, and I'm not going to go as far to say overvalue yourself, because I think it is possible where if you like, for example, if I were to go to any of my current people that currently pay me and say, oh, hey, it's $2,000 a game, well, they're going to be like, well, it was nice working with you, Karl. Good luck finding somebody to pay you $2,000 a game. But there are certain situations where if you feel like they have the budget, and that it's not asking too much to say, I know, for example, over the years we've increased our high school football broadcast rates from, I think, $50 to $75. Like that's reasonable if someone's only paying you $50 for a high school football game, to hey, last year it was 50, this year I'm looking for $75. Just kind of say, hey, I'm looking for $75 per game, that's my rate. And that's sort of up to you. If they say, hey, take it or leave at the same rate as last year, do you take it or do you leave it? So I think, once again, it just kind of comes down to your specific situation, what you're comfortable asking, and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, it does. And just, focus on building relationships and bridges, not barriers. I will say, if you're a Division One or maybe even a two, but especially Division One broadcaster, you should be, I'm not going to say that you're going to, make a living off just covering one sport, but, if you're covering two sports at the Division One level, you should be making a fairly good salary, and I'm not going to give away, too much, just saying, because it can vary, and I don't want to put down any organization, but, between 30 and 60 is very reasonable salary for somebody in a mid-major that's calling, football and men's basketball. And so, if you're working in an organization that's only paying you, say, 10 or 15,000, and you're covering 30 college sports at the D1 level, or 3 different sports at the Division I level, you got to question that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of times people are looking for opportunities, so they're willing to say, hey, I'll do this for pennies on the dollar. But long term, are you going to be able to support your future family? Are you going to be able to support yourself? So keep those things in mind, but also think about, I don't want to burn a bridge. I want to build a bridge as you move forward. We've had some other questions, but we're going to wrap it up here because we're over 30 minutes. If you'd like to know more, maybe your questions you had we didn't answer, join the SHN Sports Association. Karl and I are very passionate. With the end of baseball and stuff, things got a little bit stagnant, but we are committed to pushing content and information to you. There's a lot of value. Our goal is to try to put 2 to 4 pieces of content a week out to you throughout our social media platforms and also on the SHN Sports Association. A lot of valuable stuff. Karl just did a video about looking and digging deeper into video. I'm doing some stuff with AI, so there's things out there that can help you to get prepared for the fall. Karl, been a good one here today. Want to encourage people again, members.shnsports.com to join as a paid member. Very affordable, but been a fun one, Karl. I've enjoyed this. Kind of a little impromptu coffee with Karl and Rob today.
Yeah, no coffee. I've been up for several hours at this point. I think I woke up around 4 this morning. So just water. And yeah, always good to speak to you and the people, Rob. So thank y'all for tuning in. And yeah, leave us a comment if you have any questions that we didn't answer, and we'll, be doing this coffee with Karl and Rob and a whole bunch of other stuff down the line. So, keep tuned in here to SHN Sports for all the broadcasting